Good evening. It's 6:03 p.m. We'll call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education. Let's stand for the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Sue, any last-minute additions, deletions to the agenda?
No, only what I sent to you guys today.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 23rd meeting? Matt, second? Mike? All in favor? Aye. All right, we have two presentations tonight. The first one that we'll start with is the draft financial statements and financial report.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
To introduce myself, my name is Aaron Hahn.
If you could come right to the podium, please.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we'll make it more awkward for you.
All right, to introduce myself, my name is Aaron Hahn. I'm one of the partners at Bryan Scamulia CPAs. I was responsible for overseeing the audit field work as well as putting together the financial statements. We do have another partner, Bob Gramulia, who did the technical standards review to make sure that we hit all the standards within the profession as well as those required under governmental auditing standards. I did a more detailed presentation yesterday with the audit committee. Today, I thought we would just summarize it into one page, unless you wanted me to go through all 100 pages of paper that those reports are. Feel free to grab them. So I'm going to start with going over the auditor communications, which is a letter that we issue at the conclusion of the audit. We also issued one to start the audit about responsibilities related to the audit. The financial statements are the responsibility of management. We are responsible to audit those, but really ultimately the financial statements belong to management as well as you with the oversight. In the current letter in the auditor communications, again, we make note of the fact that management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate policies. These are detailed in note 1 to the financial statements, which is about 20 pages long. What this does is tell you how transactions are recognized within the financial statements and gives background information. Within that auditor communications, we also talk about the fact that we evaluate the estimates used in the financial statements and determine if they're reasonable. Your estimates really are depreciation. The TRS and ERS proportionate share of that liability as well as your OPEB liability. So we review things such as the actuary reports and the audited financials related to those pension funds to determine if those estimates are reasonable. There was no difficulties in performing the audit. Jesse, Eileen, and Tiffany were all a pleasure to work with, made our job easy. I know it's not easy to having a new auditor come in. We tend to ask for things a little differently, all of us, so they did a great job in accommodating us and made the process as easy as possible. An important thing to note is there was no significant journal entries made based on our audit procedures. So what this should tell you as a board that is we're not making large adjustments to your books. That means the interim financial information that you receive is accurate because we're not going in and changing a ton of, making 20 journal entries that change yours. So that should be some comfort that the reports you're getting are accurate that you're basing your decisions on. Last, Jesse and Brian have taken responsibility for the financial statements by signing the management representation letter, just stating that everything that they told us during the audit and provide us is true and accurate to their belief. Once you have approved it, we'll issue those drafts or those draft financial statements final, provide a copy for Jesse to submit to the state. The large document that you reviewed is the district financial statements. Within those financial statements, our audit opinion is on pages 1 through 3. You received an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can receive. That means that we did not find any issues within the financials, and we believe that they're an accurate presentation of the district. We also make note of the fact that we do not extend our opinion to the required supplementary information on pages A1 through A8 and C1 through C4. That is information that's required, but that we do not audit. We do extend our opinion to the supplementary information on D1 through D11 and the CFA on page F4. Following our audit opinion is a management discussion analysis, which is on pages A1 through A8, provides context and highlights of the financial status of the district, as well as comparative information to how it performed from the year prior. That is prepared by management, and again, just gives context to the financial status of the district. The core financial statements are on pages B1 through B6, and they include both district-wide and governmental funds and the reconciliation between these. Your district-wide financial statements include all your long-term liabilities, such as the OPEB, the ERS, the TRS, and things of that nature, where the governmental funds are more of a short-term focus on what happened within that year or is payable within 1 year. The notes detailing the financial statements are on pages B7 through B46. Again, that gives more context to those core financial statements and background information related to it. The government report is on pages E1 through E2. As you are a governmental entity, we are required to look at your internal control as well as compliance with certain regulations. Happy to say that we did not have any internal control findings, so no material weaknesses, which would be a pervasive issue that is so severe that we think that the financial statements could be wrong because the errors would not be corrected. There was none of those. A significant deficiency is anything that we think we need to bring to your attention. There was 2 compliance findings reported. Both were reported in the previous audit as well. The first being the fund balance of the general fund exceeds the 4% threshold of the ensuing year's budget as required by New York State. As I've mentioned before, most districts have this finding. It is something New York State's looking at raising, but looking at your previous few years, you are dropping that down and getting closer to compliance. I think it was just under 6% in the current year, so you are actively managing that, which is great to see. The other is the fund balance of the school lunch fund exceeds 3 months of average expenses as required by federal regulations. I know Jesse has a plan in place in order to spend some of that down. You know, that's really caused by there's just been such an influx of money throughout the COVID years and into this year, which is a good problem to have, but there is a federal regulation out there that you can only have 3 months within it. The single audit report is on pages F1 through F3. Because you receive over $750,000 in federal funds a year, I think you're more over around like 3.5 million as you used up the remainder of the COVID federal money that came through. We are required to do additional testing on the compliance related to those funds. So we do a determination of what is your major program. The government puts out a compliance supplement every year that tells us what we need to look at to test, and we do testing related to that. Once again, unmodified opinion on compliance requirements for your major programs, which in the current year was the child nutrition cluster, so the free lunch, free breakfast, commodities, things of that nature. So once again, very great to see. And again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control to report related to those federal programs. As I mentioned, the CFA on page F4, if anyone wanted to see the breakdown of those federal funds you received, it is available there. And again, just over 3.5 million federal funds expensed in 2023, 2024. You'll still most likely actually definitely need a single audit year to year, even though those COVID funds have dried up. They are thinking of raising that limit to $1 million. However, that has not gone through, and I think you would still need a single audit based on the current numbers anyways. The last report is the extra classroom financial statements. So the student activity funds, student club funds, again, unmodified opinion, clean opinion, which is great to see. And one thing to note on that is that it is prepared on the cash basis. So cash in, cash out, there are no accruals or anything of that nature. So at this time, is there any questions for me? I know it's a very brief summary, but like I said, I'm sure you guys want to go home tonight, so we won't go through everything in detail. No? All set. Well, thank you very
No,
much
thank you.
for having me.
Thank you. All right, up next, we have a update on the middle school climate. Please come on up, Ms. Capice. One caveat, at 6:25, we do need to take a recess to head down to the auditorium for the awards, so we'll likely have to pause your presentation at some point.
I could be done in 10 minutes. Oh, darn it. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us here again to talk about our middle school climate. We are very pleased to be able to speak to you tonight about our ongoing efforts at the middle school to examine and address the academic and social environment at the middle school. So as you may remember, in the spring, Steve Dorn and I presented about the work that we had done in the middle school with the Climate Advisory Committee and share what we found. In examining what we presented versus where we were 5 years previous to that night, we saw that the types and amounts of infractions were surprisingly similar, with fewer infractions in the 2023-24 school year. I'm going to go to that slide now. We also recognize that while this is what the data showed, it was not necessarily people's perception. We discussed that it was also possible that traditional forms of consequences may not have the same level of effectiveness in 2019, and or people have a lower tolerance for negative behaviors in climate, or less resilience in those school years. At the time of our presentation in May, we looked at these two comparisons, the top 5 disciplinary categories from the 2019-2020 school year compared to September 1st, 2019 through March 20th, 2020. Remember, these numbers represent the numbers of referrals, not the number of infractions. The first slide was the top 5. Here are the 6 through 10 most prevalent disciplinary categories from those school years. Here are some of the interventions that we have been using, just have been used in all the other buildings and in most schools. Code of conduct meetings took place within the first 2 weeks of school. This has been in place since I started here, and I suspect it was in place prior to my time here. As we said, these have worked with mixed results. All depends on the student. Here are some of the other things we talked about in the spring. In the spring, we also formed the Middle School Climate Advisory Committee. We invited all teachers to attend. In these meetings, we dug more deeply into perceptions and realities around the climate in the middle school. One of the first things we did was form a subcommittee. This is this committee here, and all faculty invited. We had 4 very productive meetings last year, and we've already had one this year. We have one scheduled for tomorrow. We have one scheduled every month this year. We'll do more if we need to. At these meetings, we took a look at the survey results in the spring, and in the future, we'll look at the survey results when we get them from the current survey that we're doing with students. We've been making steady progress, putting protocols in place, and at the end of the year, and we've continued these protocols plus more this September. We continually monitor and adjust as needed. Here's where we left off in the spring. Student Council just finished their elections. So while we left off here, here's where we're going to start going for September. Like I said, the student council just finished their elections. Not only will those students be part of a committee, but I'm going to invite other students from various grade levels who aren't part of student council to help review the survey results. I've talked to a couple already, and they're pretty excited about being part of it. The PTSO, of course, has been a very strong partnership with the middle school. We've already started our meetings with them, so that parent committee has already begun. And again, parents are welcome to join that meeting, either virtually or in person. We review referrals monthly. For September, we have way more positive referrals than we have negative referrals. So results are being shared with BLT, the teachers, parents, and students on a regular basis. Again, we continue with our parent contact sheets. Brian and I both have our mobile offices. Mickey told we'd look like doctors. I'll go with that. Our new cell phone policy is still in place. We've asked for increased presence in the hallway from our teachers, and we've been working hard on our new character education program called Respectful Ways. As a side note, the students are really loving that program. In the time we had originally allotted for that program, they've asked for additional time. So that's very, very telling, and we're very happy about that. PBIS, of course, we have a very strong PBIS committee in the middle school, so we're continuing with that.
Policy in the middle
Pardon me?
school? What is the current cell phone policy in the middle school?
In the middle school, we expect the students to leave their cell phone in their locker.
For the entire day?
Correct.
Once they arrive?
Correct.
It's there for the entire day, and then they retrieve it at the end of the day?
Correct.
Okay.
So a couple different things for this year. Based on recommendations from our middle school committee, we changed our structured studies so that they are all on the first floor. This has helped significantly with the transition and the hallway traffic during those times. They're much more well monitored, being so much closer to us around the cafeteria, so that's working out very well. Our teachers, 70 people in all, were trained in respectful ways at the beginning of the school year. And we had TAs, BAs, and middle school faculty they were trained on September 4th in de-escalation strategies, which is extremely helpful in the middle school. At our October faculty meeting, we are lucky enough to have Mr. Garrity, who is trained in TCIS, who, with Mr. King, did a presentation on what it means to be a trauma-sensitive school. And we've revived the Student of the Month. Our first recipients were recognized last week and given a certificate. We should be publishing some pictures of that soon. We did some training in PBIS. Both myself and the main coordinator, Meredith Thurston, went to the training, and we'll be doing some turnkey training with the teachers around that. Again, we have Mr. Garrity, who's a certified TCIS trainer, so I have some work planned out for him in that area. We're continuing to do our Home Connects. We've shared a lot of information with the parents. We talked about it at the open house, what Respectful Ways is, and what they can expect from their students about that. We had a student assembly on 9/9. That one we focused mostly on the positive behaviors, basically what it means to be a good citizen. On the next day, we focused more on the code of conduct and clear rules and expectations, setting the tone for the middle school. We talked about the Dignity for All Students Act, the dress code, academic expectations, arrival, departure, and again, focusing on the code of conduct and clear expectations for our classrooms and the hallways. So we're also trying to do a lot of positive things. Again, the PTSO has been very, very instrumental in helping us with some of these things. We just had the Rob Surratt speed painter come in the other day. The kids, I think, overwhelmingly loved this painter. He brought a very positive message to the students about being a superhero with your own your own abilities, such as kindness, caring for others, respect, those types of things. He was amazing. Our parent one at night, We had some parents there as well. So I think that was very successful. The students really liked it. We're working with the PTSO to get a Harlem Wizards game in the spring, so that's in the works. One of our teachers is working on Proctor's on the Go, Stories of the Underground Railroad, which is going to come to the school. We're hoping to get that in February. And yesterday and today, this week, we are working on surveys with the students, a climate survey, and the teachers one will be next week. So results and action plans from those surveys, once we get some time to digest it through all the committees, will of course be shared with you as well. So, not bad, right? I've got a minute to go, so
All
1
right.
minute for
I
questions.
have a couple of questions, but I'm going
Sure.
to speak on behalf of Jenny, who has no voice tonight. What does the respectful ways, what does a session of that look like? Like how, I'm sorry.
Why don't we field that question? And then we do need to take the recess at 6:25. We'll come back and we'll have an opportunity for more questions after that.
We want to just break now because it's only like 30 seconds. It might take me a little longer.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Let's break now.
Yes,
We'll come
please.
back, put a pin in that question.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, of course.
All right, we're back on. The good part about breaking a presentation between an award ceremony is you get a break. The bad part is you've all had a lot of opportunity now to think about the questions you might have.
That's okay. That's okay. So as far as the respectful ways go, unfortunately, I will not be able to show you what a sample lesson looks like, but I can share it with Dr. Bailey, and he could share it with the board. So basically, Respectful Ways has a variety of modules. Each module is meant to take about a month to go through. So right now, they are working on the first module, which is called Don't Be a Phony, Phoney. So they do various activities related to this. We were just looking, I wish I could show you, but so they start with discussions, and it's interesting, the students really are into discussing these things. First one is describing what it means to be present. What does it mean to be present in conversations? These are great discussions for the kids to have. When is it appropriate for you to use your mobile device at school? List 3 locations or situations when it is not okay to be on your smartphone. That's just one of the activities in the first module. So again, it's meant to have 1 to 2 lessons a week. Each module goes over about a month, and there's enough modules to last at least 1 month and then into other years. So if you like, I will share with Dr. Bailey a sample lesson, and he can send it on to you.
Who leads those activities? Who's kind of running those sessions?
Right now, it's the 6th grade teachers during enrichment.
Okay. Also, I feel like I remember from the open house, and forgive me because I don't have notes from it, but if I recall correctly, is that only being used in the 6th grade at this point, or is that also being used for 7th and 8th grade?
For now, and we do have a plan, and it will be starting, I'm not sure exactly when, but very soon, in the 7th and 8th grades.
Okay.
I don't really want to share what the plan is yet, because I haven't shared it with the teachers yet.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Jenny says thank you too.
You're welcome, Jenny. Hi, Matt.
Can you go back to the first data slide that you had?
Which one?
The first slide of data?
That
Like
one?
the third slide, I think, yeah. So, yeah, I know you talked about the numbers maybe being down and you say the perception of it, but we all know perception is a reality a little bit, right? But the first question I have is, I know we've done, even since I left, some changes to the code of conduct. But so looking at it on the top line, for example, it's defiance and insubordination is pretty straightforward. Now you have noncompliance. Is that a comparable line? Because noncompliance was never there before, like when I was here.
Correct,
So
right.
is that the same thing though?
Right, so the exact language isn't the same between those 2 years of code of conduct. yeah.
All right, is that the same with environmental distraction?
Correct,
Okay,
right,
so
we
that
found
would
them
be similar to disruption and.
most comparable
So we sort of
verbiage.
toned down the language a little bit on it, but that's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you go to, geez, I don't know which page it was, sorry. I guess I was looking at the somewhere in here, in one of the first ones, you were talking about the restorative practices, you know, and we've talked a lot about those over the years. Could you sort of walk through an example of a situation that you guys have had over there and what we actually did as far as restorative practices? We all know what it is and how it can be used, but how are we actually using it? You know, what are we doing with it?
Okay, I'm going to let Brian talk. We actually just had one within this week.
Perfect.
So one of the things that we're doing is we're making sure that we involve all of the parties involved, whether it's a teacher or it is two students involved. And I can give you an example that we've had recently. There was a minor incident between two students, and we involved the social worker and myself, and we sat down with the students. Beforehand, we make sure that both students are ready to do a mediation. We don't do mediations unless both students are ready to cooperate with that. I kind of set the stage, and then either the social worker or one of the counselors or the school psychologist will kind of take over and help run that therapeutically. And we talk about, you know, what they were feeling at the time, what got them angry, what made them react the way they did, and then we come up with alternative strategies that they can use in the future if they are feeling the same way.
So one of the criticisms I had, I'm for restorative practice. I think it's a good idea. But one of the criticisms I've had, you know, in my different roles was that, you know, we didn't use it consistently or regularly, or it was only on occasional thing, like on a really big event. So without asking on specific numbers, but do you feel like we kind of maybe percentage-wise as we're using that? And I know it's not, you know, every case you're not going to need it, but are we using it a good percentage of the time now in the middle school?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a large part of my background from where I've come from, so I try to use that as many times as possible, and including like if there's a disagreement or an incident between the teacher and a student, try to bring them together as well, because we have to repair the relationship between the student and the staff member. I don't have to repair the relationship with the student myself because it didn't involve me. So as often as I can, I'll bring that staff member in so we can repair that relationship moving forward.
Excellent. I know 6 weeks is not a lot of time for longitudinal data, but are you seeing, do you see what seems to be positive outcomes from it? Does it look like it's working?
I think so.
Kids
Our
responding to it?
positive referrals are outnumbering our negative ones, probably 3-1 right now, maybe a little more.
But I guess my question is, are the kids responding to it? Are they taking it serious, or are they?
Definitely.
Are they learning from it? Do you feel they are?
Yeah, some are more
Anecdotal,
work
I
than
know.
others, but yes, I would say we've had definite success with that.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
I have two more. You want me to give time to somebody else for now? Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, and just one more point. That doesn't mean that there isn't formal discipline as well. There's, of course, the you know, non-negotiables, but we are trying to kind of teach them, you know, how to act instead of just going right to the
Which is a
punishment.
big part of that, and getting that restorative part.
Exactly.
You know, maybe my mindset's a little different, but I always believed in, you could get the consequence for what you did, but then obviously this part is to make sure that gets resolved and doesn't lead to further ones.
Right, and they learn
and
from
all
it.
that. So I don't think, for me personally, it's not like an in place of, it's
Right.
a follow-up to the consequence.
Absolutely.
That's why I think the kids understand it better.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what slide it was on, but we talked about some of the, you have a couple of slides on the interventions that you're using. Oh, here it is. Interventions programming 23, 24. Yeah, there you go. So a lot of these are good things. Do we have any data yet on these, like how often we're using these? Because I'm just going to be blunt about it, right? Like the principal's agreement or a meeting with the principal, that can be useful, but I wouldn't want to see that being done like most of the time. So, because one of the criticisms again in the past has been, well, all the kid ever gets is that they talk to the principal and they don't take that serious. It's not a disrespect to anybody, but that's the perception part again. So do we have any data on this yet or no?
Just I want to do a point of clarification. The principal's agreement is actually pretty serious. That is something I can only do when I suspend a student for 5 days and
For the big one.
ask for a superintendent's conference.
Okay.
So that is something that I will do with a family if I can come to an agreement with them with certain behaviors, and then we don't go to the superintendent's conference. So that one is pretty serious, but I get the
You
principal
know where
thing
I'm
because
going. It's
nobody
one
wants
of
to
the
talk to me.
principal conference I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Where they just meet with the principal and there's nothing else. Is that, But for that, any of this stuff, is there data yet, or can we get some, in time, get some data on how
So-
often we're using lunch detention, how much we're using extended detention, et cetera? I'd love to see some data on that down the line.
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that.
So before we moved to Synergy, when we were at school tool 2 years ago, for almost 2 years, we had an ongoing dashboard that was visible to the board showing all the types of infractions and the type of consequences. We had a lot of trouble making that work with Synergy. We're back to school tool, so we will rebuild that so that we will see it on an ongoing basis. That part that you're talking about is the dovetail to the survey work that we're doing with kids. How does this bear out?
Yep.
How do the interventions bear out in reality with our disciplinary infractions?
I think that'll help a lot too with the perception part again, because,
Yeah.
you know, again, having been in it, a lot of times it's like, all these kids ever have to do is go see the principal, and there's not an actual consequence. And this could then refute some of that perception if we have some data on it, so. Yeah.
Your questions? Sure. So in that time that we switched between Synergy and School Tool, do we still have that data to be also, right, or do we have a gap now in that data, or is that also something that just needs to be worked back into our bigger data set?
We have all the data. The issue was making it work as the dashboard. Dashboard was very interactive, where you could say ninth grade, or you could say how many resulted in detention. It was a brilliantly designed, all the data was behind the scenes, and you could just like push buttons and graphically. That's the thing we couldn't fix, make it talk to Synergy. We do have all of the, like they could, like they did with 2019 and 23-24, although that was only until March, because May. They presented in May. So they did have all the data from last year. That's what they displayed on the screen, type of infractions. They didn't show the disciplinary results from that, but we have all that.
Okay.
Okay, last one, I promise. So going down further on, when you got the interventions and programming, and again, I'm not against this at all, don't get me wrong, but I see a lot of very specific dates, times, and opportunities to get teachers and staff de-escalation strategies, October faculty meeting, training on what it is to be we call it trauma-sensitive school, and on and on. And that's great. I think it is good to have those things, but most of the issues and the problems are usually student-based. So I saw the first two meetings, this goes back to the first question, I guess, right? There were 2 meetings with the kids at the beginning of the year, and you talked about using the 6th grade, but what else are we doing to make sure the kids are understanding everything that's going on? Because we know young kids at that age, those first 2 meetings are important and they're necessary, but what's the follow-up to make sure that throughout the year we're getting that into them? And maybe it was in here, maybe you just pointed out to me.
So, as you said, we do those meetings, and a big part of it is teachers' reaction and enlisting their help in de-escalating students on the front line. So that is a huge part. So we will continue doing our work with the teachers and training them. So as far as the students go, we tend to do refreshers after breaks. But sometimes we forget after a week of being out of school.
That's what I'm saying, right. So, but I didn't see anything real concrete plans on that. So I just bring that up as something that I'd like to see a little more of that. We have concrete, more than just those first 2, but real concrete ways throughout the year to make sure this is continuing. And signs on the wall are great, but a lot of kids don't look at them. Right? They see them once and they would never see them again. So continuing to make sure the kids understand what our rules, regulations are, and their role in all this is vital, in my opinion, to making sure we have a good environment over there. So thank you.
Could I possibly just answer back to that? She did, when they came in the spring, and I think you probably missed this,
I
but
wasn't around yet.
the teachers then, based off of what they're doing, like one of the social studies teachers did a lesson based on the behavioral issues and all the things, and they made posters, which were fantastic. So I think it really is, the teachers are then reinforcing it through their lessons
Like I said, maybe I just wasn't there,
pertaining
but
to their
I just didn't see any
curriculum too.
calling it out is my
Yeah,
whole point.
yeah,
I just want to make sure we know what's happening.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dale.
I have just a couple of questions. The data is great, and we don't really have enough of it yet. It's only been like a month. But getting away from the data, are the behaviors still occurring? Meaning that there may be de-escalation, there may be interventions where you can meet and get a resolution, but are the behaviors changing? Are they just still occurring?
Well, with middle schools, it's an ongoing process to teach students
So
how
I
to
guess
behave.
that's, are you, so in your opinion though, and it may only not be far enough along, in your opinion, are you seeing a change in the students' behaviors?
Well, with, like Brian said, our referrals are like a 3-to-1 with positive to negative referral sites. Absolutely, we have already seen a change.
So I got to ask it a different way, because the positive referrals are great and everything, but it's hard, you guys see that, it's hard, it's hard to judge that and what that really means. Because there's, with PBIS and you want to give positive referrals and reach out when students give things, there could potentially come a point where there's more positive referrals given out than negative. So it's hard for us to judge that. So I'm just asking of what you see walking the halls every day. Are you seeing overall a change in behavior in the students? Not reflected necessarily in the data yet, but are we moving in the right direction?
We absolutely are.
Okay, okay. And then, second of all, I just like to touch, because I think it's a little bit different. I met with Brian and Denise earlier this year, and the approach that I got, I think, was beneficial and different from, I think, the approach from last year. And as far as the difference between what they're feeling and what's actually going on, I think, Brian, you explained to me how you actually handled the referrals. When you meet with students, it's a lot of times is finding out, oh, this is what you're feeling, but when you actually talk it out, you can find out that what they thought was happening is not actually happening. So I think that's a different approach, and I'm happy to see that going on. The stat is hard to tell these numbers to 2 years ago. I'm just really concerned that the overall behaviors not reflected in the data are actually improving. And it sounds like it is, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You had a 1/3 change in your student population at the beginning of
Correct.
this year, right?
So we're starting
So-
over new with the sixth graders,
Started with new,
right?
so you point them in the right direction right off
Correct.
the get-go. Just as a quick question, at the end of last year, last school year, so I guess June of this year, what were referrals versus negative versus positive? You told us what it is now, better than 3-to-1. That would show that this is working somewhat, right? So what were those referrals? Do you remember by any chance?
I don't know the number offhand, no, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
no big deal.
Like I would just say, and I don't want to be negative, but I'm trying to find the positives of this as well. But, when you talk about, I don't personally find that the percentage of positive and negative referrals really tells us much. I think it's what Ed was getting at. When the mindset of the building, and I'm sure it is, PBIS and the right mindset is, hey, let's find those positive behaviors and build those. PBIS talks about building the green, is it, right? Is that what you call it? Growing the green. We want to grow the green because it's a pyramid, right? The bad behaviors. So you want to grow the green. So just saying that there's more than the negative doesn't say much. It just means that we're putting a greater emphasis on looking for those positive behaviors and calling them out, which hopefully will then decrease the red, is what we talk about. So to me, that's not a number that's going to tell us too much. It's good to see we're getting a lot of people writing those. That's important because it will improve the overall atmosphere when the kids know that, hey, if I do something well, I'm going to be recognized for that. But everybody likes to write a positive one. You can call a parent and tell them a good thing. We all love that. Nobody likes to write a negative one and call home that parent and say the negative part. So I'd be cautious about that relationship, but it is good to see there are that many because it means we're growing the green.
I also want to say thank you to you guys for letting us know. One of the things was you held 2 days worth of assemblies with the students, and you emailed the parents to let us know. And I think that was one of the things, because I didn't know that was occurring. And that was something that was so simple. So thank you for doing that and putting that out there. So I'm glad we're moving in the right direction. I think that the survey, when it comes out from the students, they're doing that this week.
Correct.
Then you'll have some more information to actually look at. Because I'm not sure that the data is going to really solve the issues. I think that looking at it, the students themselves and how they feel of what's going on is what's going to help change the behavior. So I'm glad we're doing those surveys, and I'd be interested to see what that, hopefully that data is pointing you in the right direction. That's all I have.
So next steps, the committees are going to review the survey results, and then there will be a share out with families and the Board of Education.
The next steps is that for every building, where we are this week surveying 4th and 5th grade at the elementaries,
Okay,
6th through 8th the middle school, and all grades at the high school.
Okay.
So each building will have their student and adult committees evaluate the results, talk about action planning, and we'll prepare a written report we have to hope to have ready for the board, and then we'll share it with families right after we talk about it at the board in November.
so each building has its own committee to review these
Yeah.
results? Okay. Do we have a sense of what a realistic time frame would be for?
We're hoping for the November 6th board meeting.
Oh, okay.
So it's 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
It's tight, because those committees, of course, they have to be scheduled and they have to meet, but
Yeah.
we're hopeful.
All right, very good.
Will the student committees be meeting with you between now and that November board meeting?
Yes.
So would it be possible in your presentation to give a portion of an update on the students' input from those committee meetings
Absolutely.
and their point of view?
The action plans will be a culmination of the students and the adults. They have just as much of a voice in it.
Okay.
And we agree, Ed, that their experience is the relevant thing. Referrals may not be telling their day-to-day experience, and the survey anonymously able to say, I feel as though I'm happy at school. I feel as though I'm supported by the adults in the building. I feel as though I'm treated with respect by my peers. I feel like I'm being bullied. Those are questions where they're able to tell their story, and I think it'll be, Denise had said, the students you talk to who are going to review this, they're genuinely excited because they're at that age of awareness. They know something's not right, and now an adult is asking them for input on how to correct it. Powerful thing.
So those surveys are occurring all week, this week?
Yeah, we were doing it on Tuesday, and then we extended it for the rest of the week because we had students who were absent. We were trying to get as many students as possible.
Okay. Are students given time during the day to complete the
Yes.
survey?
We're doing it assigned in specific classes, so it's not like we just sent it out and said, take this at your leisure, because we know that people don't take it at their leisure. So we're trying to do it under supervision and encouraging everybody to do it. Middle school is about 60% participation right now, and the high school's a little more than 50.
Good. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does the high school have a similar committee to the middle schools? They have the same kind of setup. And the other question, you kind of touched on this briefly, on the data that we have comparing 19 to 20 and 23 to 24, you mentioned this is the information from May, which means this isn't really the complete year for 23, 24. Is there a reason that now in October we wouldn't have the full year?
So the reason they did that actually, and the 6 words that Denise forgot, I don't know if there's 6 words, because not all of the members at the table were present when they presented in May, they wanted to present the same thing. That's why they didn't include the end of the year, but they can certainly do that, and they'll share it with the board.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at 1 year to another year, I think that it's significant to make sure that we're including one of our 10 months of the school year. You know, that could be especially in the end of the school year, love my kids, but the end of the school year, we all know how children are behaving. I don't anticipate you suddenly get a lull in discipline at the end of the year, unfortunately. So I think it would be helpful when we're comparing these numbers that we're seeing it not with 90% of the school year, but with 100% of it. Obviously, in May, that was not possible. But I would certainly want to see what the comparison is of the full.
You mean
years.
going forward, you don't mean 1920 to last year, right?
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah. Like
yes.
when we're comparing this, you know, I mean, now that it's October, I would have thought that we would have all of the information together. I mean, the way this is presented makes it seem like this was the whole year. So until you made that comment, I didn't even think to look back at the one from May to now, which is, it's the same. You know, so I would ask that in the future, if we're looking at something in October from the previous school year, that we should be looking at the full data set and not what we had in May.
Our intention wasn't to look at all of last year. She was just repeating was last year's, but we certainly going forward, we'll absolutely do that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you both.
I'm trying to not look over your shoulder, but also pay attention when you write things down.
All right, we're going to move into business considerations. We have 10 considerations. For the moment, we're just going to set aside 6.5 to treat that separately because there may be some discussion specific to that item. Is there a motion to approve the remaining business considerations? Okay, second? Second. Matt? All right, before we open it for discussion, just want to note on 6.9, there is a donation of books to Peter B. from the Donors Choose organization, so thank you, we appreciate that. Let's open up for discussion, 6.1 through 6.10, except 6.5.
Mention 610. Yeah, I just bring up the point that 610 is extending Mr. Thorson rather than just a temporary time. I forget what it was till November or so because of you were going to talk in your pro. All right, I'll let you.
Talk about it now, though.
You might as well, please, because it's on there, so I'll let you do it.
Our intention when we left the summertime was to do a posting from mid-August to mid-September to hire a new assistant principal at the high school. And we did yield a field of candidates, and we vetted the candidates by checking references and doing preliminary interviews with all of them. And we were able to reduce it down to a very small field, but we did not feel the field was large enough to move forward to a committee because we want to bring a depth and breadth of the people who are available. And we did have some, obviously we talked about the trepidation and difficulty of hiring at that time of year. We're asking people who potentially dug into their school year, September, October, November, and then leave a district in December. And that's, it's an ethical dilemma. So I think that definitely affected the field of people that we had apply. John Thorson, who is a retired principal, has been working with us since late August, and he's been a wonderful fit for the district. And he is able and willing to work with us for the remainder of the year, thus allowing us to repost the position at what I would call a more normal time in February, March, for a July 1 start date. And we believe that we will yield a much richer pool of candidates. So thank you for calling it out, Matt. That's why John is on there, and we're very grateful to have him stay.
Item, the rate obviously on this contract is by the day. Do you know what the comparison is between that rate and what it would be for like a standard salaried person in a similar position?
We set the rate I believe we set the rate at, I know the answer to that, but I don't know off the top of my head.
That's okay.
I don't remember whether we used the comparative of the person who left the position or if we set it at a rate that. Jesse's telling me what we did is we took the salary of the outgoing person and we made it per diem.
Okay.
Thank you. We will send a more comprehensive communication to families after tonight's board meeting. We wanted to wait until the board had an opportunity to have this discussion, and then we'll share out the continuation of his work here if that's what the board decides is acceptable.
And then a question on 6.8. Sorry, I'm reading off of secondary notes here. On 6.8, can you just give some clarification on that? I'm sorry, I think that's a question for you, Jesse. On the budgetary transfer, what that exactly is.
Every year we have to do a report called the ST3 to the state. It's very detail oriented. It breaks out particular things that are related to state aid. We do this at the end of August, and there is a transportation cost that was needed to be broken out that we didn't notice until we started filling out this form. So that's why we're requesting the transfer now. Yes, it is related to parent transport, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I heard you.
We are collectively good.
All right, all in favor? Aye. There's a motion for 6.5.
Motion.
Ed, second. Jenny? We have discussion on 6.5?
So on 6.5, it's just the approval of the booster clubs. But in the policy, in regards to fundraising activities in raffles, in approving this, I would just hope that the expectation is that the Sports Association and other groups, that I know they have to seek for approval, but the expectation is that they can do raffles. And for some reason, they are not permitted to do a raffle. It will be discussed with the board as to why. So I guess the expectation is, I know they have to seek approval, but the expectation, I would suggest that the expectation is that these organizations can hold raffles. And if for some reason we do not permit them, it's explained to us as to why.
Jesse can explain that. You're saying you would like them to have raffles, but you're asking why they're being told they can't? That's,
Yes.
I just,
Yes.
I couldn't clear the
Yes,
difference between can't
in a
and can.
roundabout way, because there's two types of raffles that can take place. And my understanding of looking into it is that sports association, even actually the school district, if it's under a certain dollar amount, they don't even need an identification number from the state. So it's like 5,000.
It's under 5,000 per raffle or 30,000.
For a year. So I guess the expectation would be that they should be able to do raffles. So what would be the reasoning as to why they wouldn't?
The regulation that you're mentioning speaks about nonprofits in New York State. So the rest of it is school grounds. That's the limiting factor.
I don't think that really is
Jesse
a
will
limiting
explain it.
factor, though. That's what I'm asking.
It's a game of chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know a lot of schools kind of look the other way when it comes to raffles.
Go ahead.
Dude,
I'm
no,
listening.
go ahead. No, I was just saying, but it is a game of chance. I've been written up for it in the past with accounting standards and other ways to collect for extra classroom stuff like that. So we are not permitted by law to do games of chance within school districts.
So, okay. I think, can we check with Ryan on that, just to get affirmative answer?
Yes.
Because
Sure, absolutely.
I think there's some miscommunication there.
Can I just share that as part of these organizations, I have done extensive research now and spoken to the New York State Gaming Board, and per their regulations, there are no restrictions on school districts. So what?
We don't answer to the gaming board. We answer to SED and the New York State Comptroller. So that's the organizations that we need to adhere to in these situations. I'm more than happy to look up the exact information and report back to you guys in the
I
past.
Because I also had the village and the town looking into it and the county, and they all told me that there is no regulation that they know of. So if it comes from the comptroller, I'd really love to know.
I will do all the research and get back to you. And if I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong.
I think
Okay,
I
thank you.
think we have the research. We did, Ryan did weigh in on it, and I don't have it in front of me, but quoting him, school districts can hold raffles and game of chances on school grounds, and other organizations can hold them as well. So maybe it's just a matter of clarification from Ryan, possibly.
So you already did the research on it?
We asked, but I don't know. I guess if, maybe we could have him relay it to you, because there may be
I'm
questions.
more than happy to look into it and report back to you guys.
Okay.
So could I just ask a clarifying question, because
Yeah.
I'm playing catch-up a little bit? So there's 50/50 raffles done at every home football game,
Correct.
presumably by the Sports
Sports
Association?
Association.
Is there some direction from the district that cannot happen from this point forward?
Technically, we've looked the other way with these items. Again, it happens a lot in the districts, but it's my understanding that it's not supposed to be happening in school districts. Games of chance, and
Yeah, because
it's news to me because we've been written up in other school districts for the exact same thing. So, again, I'll do the research, and if I'm incorrect, I will say that I'm incorrect, and
Okay.
in the next
So
meeting.
when is the next home football game? I believe this Friday is an away game, or is it a? Sorry?
Yes, the 20, yeah,
There's
there's,
one-
25th is senior night.
There's one more.
25th is senior night. It's home,
Senior night is the 25th, that's right,
25th.
that's right, okay. So we need to have this buttoned up by the 25th.
Yeah, if you would like any of the stuff that I've been collecting, I will absolutely forward it to you.
I'll take care of it. Thank you.
Question for Jesse.
Yeah.
The proceeds, where do they go, and do they get recorded somewhere?
We, for a fact, do not do it as a district. What these booster clubs do,
Sports Association?
We do,
the booster club is where our hands are completely out of it.
Gotcha.
yes.
So
But
what is
we
our
have
con-
all those records as nonprofits.
So what's our concern? Our concern is that it's happening on school property?
Well, I don't know, I can't answer him, but I know, I wasn't really too much involved in it when the Go Green tournament, the volleyball tournament was there recently. They wanted to do silent auctions or raffle baskets away, and there was a lot of confusion at that time, back and forth between different people that yes, you can, no, you can't.
Who wanted to do that?
Well,
What groups?
that's where, I wasn't totally involved in it, but
Yeah.
if the people running the Go Green were doing it. So the Sports Association was involved in the fact that we ran concession, and it was running their money through us, because that's the way sport teams do it. But
Okay.
they were actually doing it, so then the question is, well, could we do it on their behalf? That's what some of the questions came
So I
from.
think there's an important distinction there between
There is.
a nonprofit doing it and accounting for the money for a charitable purpose,
Correct.
and a team.
Yes, children
Teams
are
supposed to
not
go through the
allowed.
sports-
Yeah,
That's what
okay.
that's what we're looking at approving here.
Yep.
We become in this particular case, for sports at least, Sports Association is the group that the teams, because they can't have their own accounts like clubs can, run all their money through the Sports Association. They're supposed to. They don't all do it, but they're supposed to come through the Sports Association because we are a nonprofit, entity, and we have to have all the government records so we can show all that kind of stuff and keep track of it. Jesse, just my understanding of it, and you guys can do all that, whatever. I always understood it as having been in clubs and stuff, that the prohibition was of us doing that kind of stuff directly to students during school hours. That was a prohibition. You can't directly go to ask kids for charity stuff. I just want to bring that up.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, in my experience, that's not what I've heard. So I've been doing this
Find
for
out,
10 years, and if I'm doing something wrong, I'm more than happy to own up to it, and,
Yeah.
So-
That's what the SED, I just looked up quick because I wasn't sure, but it was always my understanding too. We can't decide during the day, we're going to have a raffle and say to the kids, hey, because we did do it one time. I got in trouble once even. We did a thing during the day, and it was like, we're asking the kids, even, I think it was like I forget what it is exactly, but it was something to that effect during kids'
Well,
school hours.
even for PTSO, we do it on a weekend, but we can't sell to, we do fall under gaming law that we can't ever sell to a minor. They have to be over 18 to purchase tickets. So even we, as non-for-profits, on weekends, do the same thing.
So Jess, did you say there's some concern regarding audits pertaining to the extracurricular classroom activity fund?
yeah, with gaming related to that, yeah. So,
How does-
again,
how does-
what's that?
I'm just trying to understand how,
I can't say what's.
so for example, if the Sports Association is conducting the raffle, collecting the money, accounting for the money, and it's all in the hands of a nonprofit, how does that affect our auditing for the extracurricular activity?
So if you're gonna do that as a donation, that's a whole different thing, that they donated to it. The problem is actually doing the the activity on school grounds. That's the issue with students and that kind of stuff, so.
What's the connection with the extracurricular activity fund?
Well, so in the past, some people have tried to do it through activity funds. I think that's maybe what Matt was referencing.
Okay, so that's not what we're talking about here at all?
That's not, no,
Yeah.
because they learn, they put these through these, like the booster clubs and that kind of stuff
Okay.
to circumvent that.
Okay, so that's not a concern. We can
Nope.
cross that off the list, the extracurricular activity fund. So what's the other concern on school grounds?
The issue is, we have a disagreement on if they should have the ability to do it on school grounds, booster clubs, or any other organization.
Is that a disagreement as to policy, or is that a disagreement as to law?
Law.
Okay. We'll
Or
check
guidance.
with
There's
Brian.
nothing in our
guidance.
personal policy.
Yeah, it's not in there, so,
Do you believe that state law may say that,
SED.
yeah,
right?
SED.
yeah, may
And
prohibit,
comptroller.
okay, may prohibit fundraising on school grounds,
Not games of chance.
games of chance on school grounds?
Yes.
Okay,
And then it becomes a definition, what's a game of chance,
okay.
you know?
Well, that's a very discreet issue,
It
though,
is,
that we
it's a
can
silent
focus on.
auction, a game of
Right.
chance.
Yeah, but we've
That's important.
narrowed this down to a very discreet issue that we need to answer.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Jenny? Are you okay, Jenny? Good. Okay. I know you couldn't speak up for yourself. I thought I saw you making motions over there. Okay.
Okay, so now, we have an item of business before us to recognize certain entities as affiliated booster clubs, and I'm not sure what that entails in the context of this conversation. So if we do recognize these clubs as booster clubs, does this place some restriction on their activities?
I was wondering, why did this come about?
It's been our board policy since at least 2006, and we've never followed through with it.
Okay.
And I think the opposite. I think having an agreement with an entity allows them, it opens the door. We've allowed these entities to use our facilities, use our name, use our communications platforms with no formal recognition other than their generosity. And it's not always gone perfectly. There are people at this table who can attest for that. It has not always gone perfectly. And we don't want, I mean, Jesse and I talked about it, we have no interest at all in governing an outside entity. But what this does is, if we have a relationship with the PTA at Becker, it formally acknowledges using our facility, using our communications platform, communicating with our staff. Nobody else, no other entity has that ability. I think it's responsible of us to acknowledge that this is why this entity and not some other organization that wants to use our communication platform, because we get asked all the time. I have to say no to people all the time. No, you can't put that on our sign. You're not affiliated with the school district. No, you can't do that in our front lobby. You're not affiliated with the school district. Because we want these organizations to stand for what we stand for, and they do.
So by approving them, they then fall within this policy, though, of 3260.
The way we took it more, having been somebody that had to do this, a couple of years ago for a sports association, is, let me qualify and then I'll answer yours, which is, this is not the first time we've recognized it, that the board has recognized these groups. It's been the last couple of years, right? This is the first time we actually signed something, I believe.
I don't
I
remember.
remember sitting in the audience and being like, hey, yeah, we're the group. So I think we've done it the last 2 or 3 years, maybe, last couple. But now we actually are filling something out and signing, which is a new thing. I think what it just simply does is what Brian is saying, is it just simply says, we're the recognized group.
Well, what I'm looking at is the policy here, and it says, if you're a booster club, among other things,
Yeah.
your fundraising activities must be approved in advance by the superintendent.
Right, we
That
do.
always,
Right now.
We do.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
right.
always have had to
Yes.
get
Or any fundraising activities at all?
Well, so you have to clarify, so I can't be PTSO, but probably the same
Yeah.
with the sports clubs. Let's say a swim team wants, they're doing a thing coming up, for how many laps and they do, how many dollars per lap. So we always have to tell them, they fill out 2 request forms to the sports association, us, and then they fill it out for the district as well.
If it's happening on school grounds, or if it's happening at all?
Anything, at all.
Because
Because
they're
using our
using the
kids.
school name.
And our
representing the
kids,
school when they
representing
do it.
our students.
And I will say, it does make a lot of sense, because then if 2 organizations are going to have a pie fundraiser the same week, it's not going to make sense to have us competing with each other. So
You would know.
because they're all going through one central source, it
Okay.
actually has averted some of those conflicts.
Okay.
Because it's hard. We have very enthusiastic people, and everything they're doing is to champion for our kids. So
We're not creating any new obligations or restrictions for these clubs, we're just recognizing them as official boosters?
they're already following protocols, they're building use, they're already doing requests for fundraising.
For the kind of financial records, what level of records are they looking for?
We don't want to see them.
Okay, it
We
says
don't want to.
maintained and made available upon request.
Yep, I'm not interested in requesting them.
Okay.
Is PTSO, those groups, are they 501c3s or no?
We are now.
C3s? Yeah, I know. Okay. So for example, like the Sports Association as a 501c3, we have to have full, regular auditing, accounting, and anybody wants to see them, we have, yeah, so I think that's all they're talking about. Same kind of-
PTO and PTA always had been, but because of our new-ish creation, we were not yet a 501c3. We got it in the mail last week, so, or maybe even this week.
They have their own auditing.
We're official now.
Their own auditing practices and measures. We don't want to be. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, not to beat this to any further, but, you know, I think it's safe to say that it sounds like it's the will of the board that if we are legally permitted to allow games of chance to be run on school grounds by these organizations, the board is in favor of allowing that, like we have with the football raffles and other activities. So we'll look into that. Passing this resolution tonight doesn't change that one way or the other. But that's clearly, you know, what the board desires here is to allow these activities to continue if there's some way that we can permissibly do that.
It turns out that it is not something that's permissible, then I would also ask that any organization that's doing it we are not looking the other way on one of our own policies or on a law that we are aware of. If one group is being told no, I don't want to pull this out from under anyone. I would like to just allow all the groups to be able to do this. However, no group should be made an exception of. If there is one group that is allowed to do it, they all need to be allowed to do it. If one group is not allowed to do it, none of them should be allowed to do it.
All similarly situated groups.
Yes.
Right, so these if they have a certain status, a not-for-profit status, as opposed to like a team or some loosely assembled.
Right. I just want to be clear, you know, we talked about before that there is a group who
Yep.
does do raffles on school grounds. If our stance is, you know, if after the research, after consulting with Ryan, if the stance is that games of chance are not allowed on school grounds, then that is that games of chance should not be allowed on school grounds for anyone. Sports shouldn't be made an exception if
Right.
PTO is not allowed to do it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything further on this? All right, we can take a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Personnel considerations, 7-1 through 740. Is there a motion for one or more? All, Jackie, second? Dan? Any discussion?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. The first one, I think that I know the answer. On 7-1, that instructional technology and elementary teacher, is that the librarian kind of position that's split? Okay, thank you. And then the other one, can you just clarify on 7.18 and 7.19, what is a helping teacher?
So our teacher mentor program has sort of two tracks. One is a formal mentoring program that's required for teachers who are working toward their provisional certification. And then for teachers who come to us who have experience and have been through a mentoring program, we have helping teachers that are just assigned to them as sort of more of a support around, this is the RCS. Like, these are where you need to do this, this is how we do the other. Well, it's a little beyond, but yes. So they're more of a sort of in the trenches support.
Anything else? Yeah.
It's 7.25. It's calling out an elementary lunch recess supervisor. Does that mean they're doing supervision in there, like they're doing lunch duty? Or is that an actual supervisor? You know, I know that what's in the contract, we can get paid for lunch duty to cover lunches. Is that what that is?
It's a lunch duty, just like the high school and middle
Okay,
school.
all right.
So
And just the supervisor just threw me off, like it was somebody in charge of all the people doing it, and they're just doing lunch duty.
at the elementary school, they do inside and outside,
Right,
part of the same.
right. But they're not in charge of, they're not supervising
Adults.
the whole
No,
process.
no.
They're just doing that supervisory duty.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I wanted to verify, because, yeah, something new I didn't know about
Yes.
otherwise. Thank you.
Anything else?
Can I just say a big thank you to the teacher who stepped up to be the freshman class advisor? Yay,
And we have a second person, they just let us know late, so they'll be added for the next.
yay, I'm so excited. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving into reports. Dr. Bailey?
I think at the last board meeting, I'd mentioned that homecoming was the week after, the week of our board meeting, and the senior nights have continued for our sports teams, various sports teams, and I've gotten to attend a couple so far, and there's more to come. They are all on our school calendar, but just like seeing the few kids tonight that we acknowledged, it's really awesome to see the students who have either they're participating for the first year, which sometimes they do, or they've been in it since 7th or 8th grade, and to see the pride. I know the Sports Association purchased banners for our seniors. They're gorgeous. You know, I have some pictures, but it's a banner with the student's picture on it and their name and their team. And I think last year we had them up in the gymnasium and then at the end of the year, the kids get to take them. So here's a perfect example of how some of the money that's raised through these organizations comes right back to the students and the families. They look like NFL or NBA players. They look really good. Last Friday, I have some too. Last Friday, we sent an email to families. We've talked about some of the transportation concerns and limitations that we've had since the opening of school. We sent a letter to families that expressed the challenges that we have, the shortages of staff, the fact that our office staff are frequently behind the driver's seat driving. And we've had to adapt a little bit. We've made some changes to ensure that there is always someone to be able to answer the phone and act as dispatcher if and when our staff aren't in the office. We've made some adjustments to our protocols with the Stop Finder app because what we discovered is if bus 325 goes down and we send bus 326, their Stop Finder app is still following bus 325. That will change once students start scanning when they get on buses, but for the short term, you know, we've made some adjustments to try and improve our communication with families. The biggest thing is we all expect good service, and we're not always been able to provide it to families. We want them to know at least a little bit about it, why, and our promise to make it better. And I think all the board, you all in district, you probably received that email. And of course, there was a solicitation to please join our team as well. We include that in as many places as possible, and we think we approved a new driver tonight, right? So that helps. This week, I should say next week, will be the first Ravens report. The Ravena News-Herald approached us as part of their news consortium. They're giving us a page in the Ravena News-Herald once a month where we get to acknowledge some of the celebrations for our buildings in our district. Next week will be the first one of those, and we'll have one, Michelle told me. I think the next one is like within 2 weeks. It's going to be on a consistent day, like the second Thursday of the month, every month of the year. So we're grateful for the News-Herald for allowing that. It's a really nice way to build a connection with our community. We already talked about John and his continued employment here. And as I mentioned, the student surveys went out, and as Denise mentioned, staff are going to be surveyed next week as well. We did a survey in 2023 and 2024, and what we asked each building to do is to take the top 5 to 8 concerns that staff had and survey only on that and ask some follow-up questions. And then that will be reviewed by our adult shared decision-making committees, because it's important, it's just as important to consider the culture and climate for our grown-ups. They can't be at their best if their needs aren't being met. So we will do the same thing, create action plans based on what we discover, and we'll be able to share some of those things out with the board as well. And the last thing I want to talk about was school safety. We have done a couple of things since our last board meeting. Our Health and Safety Committee met. We talked about some of the important work that we need to do based on what's been happening in our community and our nation. And as part of that, we agreed that we would meet with our safety consultants, which we did today, a number of us did today, to talk about some of the protocols for public events. We look at what happened just north of us. What became readily apparent is plans that work in a classroom on a daily basis don't work when it's on a field outside with visitors and families and things like that. And I'm very excited about the analysis that this organization gave us. And they had some really good plans about how to continue to adapt what we know every day. Our SHELL, which is shelter, and lockdowns and evacuation drills, to take what we already know, kids have learned since the first day they stepped into school, and adapt it to these other situations, including the gymnasium, including the auditorium, including these places that we use all the time. And they're going to do some refinement, and then we're going to come back to our crisis response teams in our buildings. A lot of this work is confidential. These aren't things that we'll share with the public, but we will share with our staff, and we're going to teach our students. So there will be a more solidified plan for every environment that our students and our staff work in. And unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons, we recognize that that is something that all schools are obligated to do. I would say, based on our conversation today, we might be strangely like a little bit of trendsetters in this work, which I'm surprised about, but I don't mind that. And the work that we do with this company, our consultants, will only serve to benefit all the other districts that they work with. So I think it's excellent work. We'll give a bigger update around this at our health and safety meeting on the 29th, which is a large committee. There's about 18 people on that committee. There's some board members on there that we can have some more in-depth discussion around it. But quite frankly, we all know the complexities of trying to create a safe environment in every single place that we're working. I am very hopeful after our meetings in the last 2 weeks that we'll be able to deliver on a promise to our families that we have a responsibility to do. And we will give a continued update to our families around what we're doing, the work that we're doing, to the extent that we can. We want them to know that we're planning, we're drilling, we're communicating with our staff and our students. They need to know that, because I think every day when we put our children on the bus, we are, in the back of our minds, we want to make sure that they come home just as we send them to school. So we will be communicating with families. Any questions about that? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jean?
Okay, I have a couple of things, and one that wasn't on my slide, but, so I want to circle back to, Jenny had some questions at our last board meeting about the approval dates for the Committee on Special Education. So I did do the research. Brian had talked with Colleen. I emailed you back, but I was worried that I wanted to make sure I addressed it publicly in case anyone who was listening at the last meeting got this information as well. So the date that was listed that was in question was March 12th, and it was actually a clerical error. That was the date of the initial meeting for that student, and what had happened in the meantime was they had a program review that was on 9/16. So it was a clerical issue. It was resolved in the system, and we'll pay closer attention to that to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But I think the more important piece is, Jenny asked the question, like, have we had delays in providing services? And overwhelmingly, the answer is we have met the implementation timeline for every one of our special education students. There have been no delays in implementing any of our student services because of Board of Ed approval. So that was good to report back. think we had a really awesome Board of Ed CNI meeting. The minutes are linked in the agenda a little bit below this section. And I just want to highlight, first of all, the work that went into the presentation. Colleen Agustinoni worked with Tim King and Kate Thibault on really building off of the elementary continuum presentation that they had done. So if you have the time, please look through it. The continuum review really included some historical context for how the programs have grown and changed over time, how the office has changed and grown over time. We talked a little bit about least restrictive environment and free appropriate public education to kind of lay that foundation for folks. They included the audit recommendations and the next steps that they've identified as key points for each level. And in that plan, Colleen and Kate are going to be bringing an advisory committee of teachers together to really dig into those recommendations and help prioritize them and strategize about how we can go about approaching implementation of addressing them. There was also included in LinkedIn the Office of Special Ed and Student Support. They have their goals and their action plans. So it's laid out a little bit differently than the buildings, but a very similar approach. And you'll see a lot of what's in there is reflected in that came out of the audit needs. And then finally, Colleen introduced the district-wide special education plan. So board policy has us bring that to the board every 2 years. So our goal is to have that on the November agenda, on the consent agenda. It's got a lot of information in it. It is primarily built from guidance from SED about what needs to be included. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to send those to me and Colleen, and we can get back to you. Coming up, we have 2 professional learning opportunities for teachers. One is a half day on October 24th. That's next week. And then another full day of professional learning on November 5th. So I'll report out some of the highlights from that. And then finally, we got notice from BOCES today that the letters going home with the results of the 3 through 8 testing started mailing this week and will be mailed through next week till they finish getting those out to all the families earlier than last year, thank goodness. But I also wanted to put in a plug for anyone who wants to join us at upcoming Board of Ed CNI meetings, because we are going to be taking a closer look at state performance and Regents results at the November meeting, and then we'll be looking at the 3 through 5 performance at the December meeting. That's it. Any questions?
Do the teachers already have access to the results?
Yes, yep, those were sent some time ago. And they're no longer embargoed, yay. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gene. Justin?
So tonight I wanted to share, we just had a building and grounds and capital project meeting just before this meeting. And if you want to look at this milestone project kind of schedule, this is for our $15 million project. There's a lot of information on here. Again, it's a little bit early into the project, but I wanted to give you some high points of it. And anybody else who's in that committee, feel free to kind of touch on things that I don't. First off, the art and music in the elementary school. The plan right now is to put in the AC univents on February break. That is, of course, if we get all the equipment that's supposed to come in on time. So that would be good for those 4 classrooms. They are going to be trying to do as much side work with our parking lots as much as they can before summer, because we do have a lot of site work to do over the summer. So they're going to be working closely with us to see if there's time, over breaks or where we can do certain sections of the parking lots. We will be doing a lot of second shift work for the fire alarms. They did assure us that when they are doing these fire alarms, they completely build a new fire alarm system before they even turn off the old one. So they test the new one, and they will not remove the old one until they pass all those tests. Univentilators, we will be doing some univentilator works on second shift and over breaks. They do like to get a few of those done because there is a lot of work involved with that. The big issue there is we have to do abatement work, And with that, you need to close off certain areas. You also see in here highlighted under Becker, green area, those are the parking lots that has already been finished. And I don't know if everybody's been over there, but they did an awesome job. That was a pretty rough area, and it's much nicer driving to that now that that's completed. Any specific questions regarding the $15 million project? And if anybody else from that committee wants to add anything to it, feel free to.
Two things I was gonna ask you today.
Yeah.
Ball field at the high school. Who uses that? The baseball field at the high school here?
It's a great question.
Because the varsity
Yeah, they're
plays
over
down
at
at
Peter B.
Peter B.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious.
Probably
What
JV and Monterey.
JV? Okay, well,
I don't know for the fact.
no big deal. And then some of the drainage, Mark probably has those answers, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one is the soccer field at the middle school. I believe that's south of the campus, correct?
Yep.
That's a tricky area
Yeah.
because we've had a lot of problems on the other side, on the east side of 9W. That's where everything drains towards the railroad tracks and it goes virtually nowhere. So the next time we talk, I want to pick Mark's brain a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great questions, especially with your knowledge. That'll be
Yeah,
great to
that's
add
it.
to the value in that,
Yeah.
in those discussions.
But other than that, I thought it was a great meeting. It was very positive. and,
Yeah, I think Bill ran a good
yes,
meeting. Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. The only other thing I'd like to add, there's some more playground. So we did purchase new swings for Peter B, and they will be going in next week. So brand new swings will be going in. We are still on track for a November delivery date for the AW Becker pre-K playground. So if you've been over there, you see the old one has been taken out. We will be adding the new playground into that location, hopefully soon after delivery in November.
To the parking lot renovations, everybody's got to be very, very patient.
Yeah,
You have to break an egg before you can fry it.
yeah,
So it's going to be well worth it, but it's going to be a little hectic, I think, around here.
right, and that's why they're gonna be in close conversation with us to make sure that, the traffic will be low on those days that they're working. And as you know, that's a lot of pavement out there to do work on.
Absolutely. And just so the board knows, I did ask the question if any of that could be done after hours during the summer to alleviate some of those concerns. But Brian indicated there's 2 weeks in there. Well, I don't think there's a lot of
Yeah,
activity on
before,
the campus.
end of school and the beginning of
Yeah,
summer school,
so-
more activities happening at the schools, so.
Yeah.
Is the trickiest part gonna be the center? Because they're removing that whole area there, and
Yeah.
kinda when you do that, there'll be no flow.
Yeah. And there's a lot of sidewalk work they're gonna be doing in there too,
Yeah,
which,
sidewalk.
yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of work there too. I'm not a construction guy, so I couldn't tell you which one the trickiest spot would be, but I would think that would be one of the hardest ones.
So Matt's got a good question. They're not replacing that center island,
Yeah, they
correct?
are. So
Yeah.
that whole center island is coming out. So what's actually gonna happen is the whole center island, concrete, is coming out. The sidewalk, behind it by the teacher's parking lot is gonna be wide until I think like 15 feet, because that's how the students are they're gonna walk. It's gonna be all reconfigured. The buses, I think, they park this way, they're now gonna park the other way, and all the way up where that center island is, if I'm correct, are gonna be spots each side where cars will face each other.
If those,
There's gonna be
Yeah.
some lighting there too, yes.
if there's, because I came into this, I was missing for that year. Do we have those plans? Are they out there already?
Yeah, we can definitely get
Can you
those. if
share those
need to
with us
share.
so I can
Yeah,
get a view of it?
Yeah.
I just wasn't around for that, thank you.
It won't compute, it's so different.
It'll
I really want to get my head around it, yeah. You guys weren't here when, some of you guys may remember when we had 3 green islands out there.
I have the picture
There
in
used
my
to be 3 green islands, and then everything went circles around it. So,
This was the better
when they did this, I was actually unhappy because they got rid of all the green space. I was like, not loving that.
3 circles.
It was very non-functional. It was
This
more.
is the
So
better
we're trying to
version.
fix
Did we
it.
mention
We're
that?
trying to fix it. That's all I have tonight.
Anything else for Jesse? All right, we have any new business items? Old business, we can remove the middle school discipline plan that was scheduled for tonight and deliver it as promised. The playgrounds are almost resolved, right? The only hanging is, is the
November,
pre-K, yep.
You know,
Yep.
the one thing we did talk about were the signs. Did we ever,
At Peter B.
at,
Well, I think we are looking into possibly doing with that nice donation, putting up something.
at Becker?
Yes,
With the
absolutely.
donation. And then
Absolutely.
Peter B., I swear, at
Yeah.
some point, we did order a sign
Yeah.
for Dr. McCarthy.
Yes,
Oh.
you're right. The PTA did mention that they were willing to pay for the sign at
That's
AW
awesome.
Becker as well.
I don't know if it got lost in one of the,
Just like a thank you sign, like
it was a dedication in
Like, yeah,
memory
they
of
donated certain items
Dr.
or money. Yeah.
McCarthy back when he passed.
So Sue, let's scrap the middle school discipline plan from old business. You got it already, okay? Continuation of the special ed report, I believe, is completed, right? The CNI, okay, so we can scratch that. Substitute teaching assistant rates, that was up at the policy committee, right?
So, yeah,
Still open?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mike, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't heard much on the SROs. Have you guys talked about prior to myself and Matt getting here? Yeah,
Yep, I'll share the document again.
okay.
Under old business, Mike, if I could.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I just want to bring up again, I know we mentioned before, but I'd like to continue to push, and we just talked about it briefly ahead of time. Since for the board committees, policy, all that kind of stuff, I know, Jenny, you shared the dates, I appreciate it, but if we're sending out email calendar invites for those, I'd just like to see us include the entire board on all those. So if that's, I don't know if it goes to you, Sue, or who does them, but. No, if calendar invites are going out, I think we all should be, the board, not everybody has to come, but at least we're fully cognizant of exactly when it is. Jenny did send out the dates, but honestly, just to me, but even when they're sending it to me, I didn't put them in there, and then next thing you know, I look at my calendar, it was 10:12, and the meeting was on 10:10. I didn't know about building grounds today, and I would like to attend a lot of those meetings, so if we can just, whoever putting those email invites for the meetings out, please include all the board members, just so we always know. Again, it'd be great if we all kept track of it, but it's just way easier with that.
I did notice the CNI schedule is on the minutes.
Well, I mean, just to that point, in the library area of board docs, there is, I believe, a full committee meeting calendar.
Breaks out everything.
And also, Brian, when you sent out in your news and notes from a couple weeks ago, maybe, there was a link to, what do you call it, the Board of Education dashboard?
Yes.
And in the dashboard, there's a link to a document with all of the committee meeting dates also.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not out there, I agree.
No,
with
no,
you,
no, but
it just,
if-
it
if-
helps all of us to.
If the
when you
calendar
get it.
invites don't come though,
Yes,
right, there
it's
is a
there.
reference that's already put together that lists all of the
Correct.
committee meeting
Yeah,
dates.
yeah, I'm not indicating we're not knowing about them, it's just,
Yeah.
For busy people, it's always easier to, oh, yeah, here's that thing.
And
We discussed.
That's also
sorry.
publicly accessible, right? Is that a publicly available area board docs? Yeah, so that's, for the public also, there's awareness of when all of the committee meetings are scheduled. Sorry, Jackie.
Sorry. On the old business, we talked about quite some time ago about wanting to have something more community involved or have some sort of like forum to encourage more community involvement, but I feel like honestly, that kind of dropped off our sites quite a bit. So I want to bring that subject back up, so that it doesn't just sit out there forever. We all, sort of discuss the want to get the community more involved and open the communication, I think, a little bit better. So I want to open that conversation back up as to, is there any intention at this point, are there any plans as to what we can or will be doing moving forward?
Really, what we've been waiting on is what's the right thread to pull on. I've talked to a few people from organizations within within our community to partner with, to find a topic that is mutually beneficial. And we do intend to do it. It's just, we want to find the right topic. Inviting people in for the wrong one that they're not interested in is not relevant, but I'm open to suggestions.
Okay, I mean, I was kind of more under the impression that we were looking to do something slightly more open than, not like a presentation, but more like a forum in the way that we can interact more with the community has more of an opportunity to speak to us, and that doesn't quite sound like what you're necessarily referencing.
I've held 5 forums with the community before the pandemic. They were focused on what we wanted to see for student outcomes, what we expected job readiness to look like, what we wanted to see for our community, our culture in our community. So I'm saying it's centered around a topic, rather than just having like people say, who wants to talk about something? But that's what I mean by topic.
Okay.
And then we have a committee that helps to design like the prompting questions involving people from the community, like what are you most interested in? And then we have like a very purposeful dialogue around the topics. So what's up?
Just being disruptive.
But that's what I mean. So it would not be a presentation.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, it is just a matter of, and we unquestionably did a hard pause 2020 to today for a few reasons. But we're in a place now where people gather openly.
Sure.
And,
Well, right. I mean, we talked about this when I started a year ago, and here we are, still, and not having anything actually, put in place.
Right.
So I
What
don't
do you
want us
suggest? What do
to
you wanna
lose
talk about?
sight. I mean, I would like something more informal than formal. I mean, being more into the community, I don't think that it would be helpful for us to have something that's like in the auditorium because it's, it becomes much more formal. It's not going to be something that we're going to get,
wouldn't be in the auditorium.
good feedback on. I mean, certainly working within what we have is great, but, I mean, I want it really to be, no offense to the 3 of you, but for the board to be able to have more community involvement.
like a coffee hour.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've made that proposal, at least in general, with the board, that I think, utilizing one of our local restaurants or something so that it's something more like the business association has, sort of those events that encourage a lot more of networking, of open discussions, and something less in a formal scenario.
Board can do that anytime. Seriously, you want to hold an event at outside of the school. I like the idea of being in the community because look at what like the Community Business Association. We've been at those events and they're at businesses in the community. That's a totally different vibe, right?
It is.
And some people are afraid to come into the school sometimes.
Yeah,
For a lot
yeah,
of
and I mean,
reasons,
the business association, kudos to them. They put on great events, and it encourages people to have a lot of, just communication with people that they might not generally be sitting next to.
Right.
Well, you're absolutely right. We have been talking about this for a while. I think even before you came on, we were talking about this and haven't done it yet. My vision was, originally a series, right? So maybe like 3 events, not a one-time thing, but centered around, like Dr. Bailey said, a topic. Might be school safety. Another topic might be academics generally. And another topic might be something else that we come up with. Put the dates out ahead of time to show people there are 3 opportunities. These are the topics at each event, which will help to, I think, contain and focus the discussion. So if somebody brings up safety at the academics meeting, we can say, there's actually a separate forum just for that particular topic, so let's shift it to that. Just so there's that opportunity, people know what we're going to be addressing, and they can kind of hit the topics they're interested in. So, yeah, we should do it.
I think we should do it too. And then just figure it out, because even when even if the board did it, if it's in a restaurant and we're all together, it would still be technically a meeting, right? When you have a quorum of the board in a public place, so.
Workshop, like a workshop.
Like
kinda,
a workshop type thing?
Yeah.
Series of different topics? Yeah, I agree with you. We've been talking about that for the past 2 years, so.
I'll send a survey to the board and ask them to crowdsource some thoughts around what you want to talk about. So to Jackie's point,
Right.
people don't roll in for an hour-long presentation from somebody. But what we have traditionally done is, like a format, it's like a good class. So we do 5 to 10 minutes of, here's what's in place, or here's what we're thinking, or here's some challenges we face, and we're gonna think, pair, share, we're gonna, go to stations, we're gonna do Post-it notes, we're gonna talk to neighbors, we're going to, and it has to end with something. That's obviously the formula we want for every class. But it is all about engagement. Why would anyone come if they didn't feel like their voice mattered while they were there? And if it's a restaurant, it's a totally different engagement, so. But I'll send a survey out to the board, and people can put in their suggestions around what it is that we might want to talk about. And since you're all parents, community members, board members, you have a broad perspective on like what might be relevant to folks right now. So, any other thoughts on how we?
Well, we could, once we figure it out, that's something we could advertise as well. I mean, on the district site,
Yeah, of course.
probably, so we can get an idea. I think we should definitely do it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like in advance, like.
Just to advertise when these events are gonna be held and,
Right.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep.
I know years ago you did one on restorative practices. I don't know,
It had a station that
2017
had.
or 18 like that.
Did a circle work over. in
Yeah, and it was actually really,
Yeah.
I still remember it now. So things like what we were asking about the new program for the middle school, like those kinds of things are what people want. They want to know
What's happening in the building, yeah.
believe it or not, as long as PBIS has been around, a lot of people don't know what PBIS is. So that might be a really great thing for parents to be able to see. What does this look like in the elementary school? What does it look like in the middle school? What does it look like in the high school? And how can they support it at home?
The student experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we always, we healthy struggle with open house. Look at, in your lifetimes, we've done open house in every conceivable way, trying to get to what is the thing that families need when they come. And we're always getting it right with one type of parent. It's hard to meet the needs of everybody. I personally, I am always married to, when I go, I want to see what my child is experiencing. That's what's relevant to me. So I like that as like the grounding thing. And that forum that Mel's talking about, we had like 5 stations. That one was led by students. I think.
Yes, it worked so very well.
We had like 80 people here, and they moved in stations. We had a station in here, we had a station in the lobby, we had a station in the new main, and this is a good way for people to see the new building too, because it was done in 2018-19, and the last forum we did was the fall of 2019, before the pandemic. So it served 2 purposes. People saw something they'd never seen before, and there was some awe and shock, because it's brand new, that new school smell. And they got to experience what their kids did. It was really engaging, so. Okay.
We just want to make sure that when we are sharing the information too about the upcoming events, just making sure that we are doing what we can to reach out to people beyond just the school. Obviously the school communications are helpful, but we have a lot of community members who don't get school communications, who don't have kids actively in the school, but are still active community members and still have every right to be involved in all of our processes. Partnering with perhaps the News Heralds or something who I know are very helpful in these things, but making sure that we're getting that out to the bigger community and not just our school community. Thank you.
We have the Ravens report now.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, we have a perfect spot for it.
Always does so much advertising and
Yeah, and the Business
the
Association.
business association, there's so many that we have now.
Yeah, there's some
we
great
didn't
community
used to
organizations that
have,
can
yeah.
help us, get some notification out, so.
All right.
Okay.
Do we have anything else? Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion then to enter into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person.
So moved.
Wait, second. Jackie? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll be taking no further business when we come out. Thank you.